On Saturday, October 7th, Palestinian Resistance Group Hamas launched a surprise attack on Israeli occupation forces around the southern occupied territories. In response, Benjamin Netanyahu declared a state of war against Hamas and asked residents to leave the Gaza Strip to avoid being caught in the middle. The statement included no instructions on which routes to take or which exits would facilitate safe evacuation, nor has any information been released on safe zones where non-combatants can take refuge from air raids. Gazans have reported that there is no escape nor safe zone for them to go to. Shortly after the declaration of the state of war alert, air raids commenced on the Gaza Strip. If you've been following the news, you might have come across this video of air raids. But wait, this isn't even from the Sunday raids. This video is actually from Israeli air raids in the Gaza Strip in May. Reuters released a fact-check update on the video due to its overuse on digital and broadcast media. There is, in fact, an air raid currently ongoing in the Gaza Strip, but this area has seen so many of those in the past year alone that news outlets cannot distinguish old footage from what's happening in real time. This gives a lie to the reportage that dates the escalation of hostilities to the events of this Saturday. Escalation has been ongoing from Sheikh Jarrah to Jenin to Al-Quds and Gaza itself. Here's a compilation of Infer's coverage of various escalatory acts by the Israeli government and the occupation forces for context. And remember, we're not even a year old yet, and our coverage has been very selective on this issue.
We're covering U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, warning the incoming Israeli government against increasing settlements in the occupied West Bank and pledging to oppose further settlements. Benjamin Netanyahu is set to become the new Prime Minister of Israel. His coalition partners include the pro-settler parties, which call for the forceful removal of Palestinians from the West Bank and East Jerusalem. The international media network Al Jazeera has officially lodged a complaint with the International Criminal Court in The Hague to investigate the killing of veteran journalist Shireen Abu Akleh. Israeli army killed a 16-year-old Palestinian girl in the northwest bank, Jenin. The official Palestinian news agency stated that Jana Zakaran was found dead on her rooftop after she was hit by a gunshot on the head during the Israeli forces' raid of Jenin, where Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Shtayyeh has asked for deploying United Nations monitors in the West Bank. He called on the UN teams stationed at Palestine to deploy the monitors in areas in the occupied West Bank, which frequently come under attack by the Israeli settlers, where Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu has announced the formation of his government after winning elections on November 1st. His coalition government will consist of those widely regarded as the far-right, ultra-Orthodox members.
Israel's outgoing defense minister, Benny Gantz, has said that Israel has significantly increased its preparedness in recent years and could possibly launch an attack on nuclear sites in Iran in 2 or 3 years. A resolution calling on the Hague-based International Court of Justice, ICJ, to give an opinion on the legal consequences of Israel's illegal occupation of the West Bank and East Jerusalem has also been passed in the United Nations General Assembly. Syrian military claims Israel carried out missile attacks last night, targeting the Damascus International Airport. The attack resulted in the death of 2 Syrian soldiers and put the airport out of service temporarily.
The Palestine-Israel issue continues to gain international attention, as China and the United Arab Emirates have requested a public meeting of the United Nations Security Council over the recent developments at the Al-Aqsa compound in the occupied Jerusalem. The newly appointed Minister for Police, Itamar Ben-Gvir, entered the Al-Aqsa compound with an entourage of the armed personnel, raising concerns about the fragile security situation in the area, which has raised concerns over the crumbling status quo at the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound in Jerusalem, after Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir made a visit to the sensitive site, which Palestinian leadership has called unprecedented provocation. Thousands of people have taken to the streets in the capital of Israel, Tel Aviv, to protest against the newly elected government of Prime Minister Netanyahu, as it plans to undertake the judicial reforms and promises to increase the illegal settlements in the occupied Palestinian territories. Israeli Prime Minister has been actively working towards normalization of relations between Israel and Saudi Arabia, which has only remained on the top of the foreign policy agendas of Premier Netanyahu's government. Israel has carried out multiple airstrikes and fired 2 drone missiles in the occupied Gaza Strip in response to alleged rocket attacks by the Palestinian armed resistance groups.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on his official visit to Israel and Palestine, the first since far-right Prime Minister Netanyahu rose to power again, criticized the growing Israeli settlements as well as including the illegal occupation, evictions, and demolitions of houses, which he said had a negative impact on the two-state solution.
According to a joint statement after a meeting between Israeli and Palestinian officials in Jordan, Israel has agreed to pause its illegal settlement outpost in the occupied West Bank for 6 months. But many doubt if this commitment will be honored.
According to a letter circulated in Israeli media, 37 Israeli Air Force reservists have announced they would refuse to show up for a training day in protest against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's plans to overhaul the country's judicial system. Seen Israeli security forces enter illegally the Al-Aqsa Mosque in East Jerusalem, smashing windows, throwing stun grenades, firing tear gas, and tying the hands of Palestinian worshippers and arresting them. Although Israel has justified the move by citing the alleged presence of masked agitators in the mosque.
Meanwhile, the UN's first ever Nakba commemoration on May 15, 2023 brought attention to Palestinian displacement during Israel's creation. Although most countries participated, some boycotted, and the US criticized it for bias. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has also doubled down by announcing that Israel is ready to fight Iran on multiple fronts and prevent them from establishing terror fronts and obtaining nuclear weapons. While Israel marked its 75th independence anniversary this year, Palestinians continue to recall the cost of that independence as the Nakba, or catastrophe of violent displacement that came with it. 15th May 2023 marked the 75th anniversary of the Nakba, a significant event in Palestinian history characterized by the displacement and loss of their homeland. Coming back to Netanyahu's statement and the ongoing hostilities, this is the Gaza Strip, one of the most densely populated pieces of land in the world. A 2018 assessment by the Norwegian Refugee Council recorded its population density at around 5,000 inhabitants per square kilometer. The place is known by humanitarian organizations and residents of the Gaza Strip alike as the largest open-air prison in the world. It's called that because the entire strip is barricaded by Israeli fences and walls, forcing residents to remain within its confines. Israel also controls water provision, medical supplies, and general movement within and movement out of the strip. As airstrikes continue to hit the besieged strip, it is not possible for civilians to leave without concerted administrative facilitation from Israel. At the time of recording this video, the number of people killed by Israeli attacks in the Gaza Strip has gone up to 493, health officials say. More than 2,750 are injured, and over 800 Israelis are reportedly dead, with over 2,000 injured. Israeli occupation forces are gathering around Gaza to reinforce the siege. Israel has also cut off water supply to the Gaza Strip.